All right.
Welcome, everyone. Is this episode 6? Episode 6 of the Sports and Nothing Else podcast. It still exists. This is about 5 more than I expected us to do.
Shocking, actually.
Yeah, we have.
I actually have it down. I have it down as episode 7, and then I realized that I didn't have an episode 6, so I'm going 6.5.
All right. We haven't been canceled yet. That's pretty good. All right.
Or sponsored for that reason.
Oh, no. Except FanDuel, big sponsor. All right. How are you?
Doing pretty good. This is going to be an interesting podcast since neither one of us are overly prepared for it. And on the agenda is draft analysis, and so that's going to be a lot of Jesse carrying that one.
Well, that's gonna be like 30 seconds. We're gonna do a big draft preview next week that we're actually gonna get ready for. So, because we'll tape it the night before the draft, and then you'll be able to listen to it after the draft and say, "Wow, this is all wrong." So that'll be great.
Or we'll beat Cowherd, also possible as far as projections are concerned.
Yeah, we might have him on. Chris Sims, a whole bunch of guys. Anyhow, well, we love baseball, so we're starting with baseball.
Yep.
But we're going to go fast tonight because we've got a lot of topics we want to hit, and neither of us are well prepared. So that's how we're going to do it. So give me your number one takeaway so far from the Major League season that is now 3 weeks old or so.
So I was actually looking through team stats, and there are a couple things that we were really, really wrong about, or more that I was really, really wrong about. I mean, one, the Twins are terrible, but if you look at their offensive stats, they're not bad. It's the bullpen. Good night.
It's bad.
And it hasn't even been that Colome has been, or Colome, or however you want to say his name, has been that bad. It's been errors and errors and errors. I don't know if you saw the error by Luis Arraez. I mean, that throw, it looked like Chuck Knobloch was back in the majors. It was truly unbelievable. But the Red Sox are absolutely raking. They're hitting 285 as a team.
Devers, I told
23 bombs.
Get another homer tonight.
Just insane. I mean, your entire team producing like that, it's kind of tough to be losing. The A's, another team that we were pretty wrong about.
I get to the A's.
Go ahead.
I need to piggyback on the Red Sox because it's a nice, glorious time to mention that the Yankees have the worst record in baseball.
That was my next. My next team.
6-10. They are beating the Indians right now as we speak, which is sad. But if they're not going to hit, that team's in trouble because they are not going to pitch it.
No.
They have Garrett Cole and a bunch of guys that are either overrated or washed or both. So great. Sign me up for that.
Yep.
Make your A's point because it's really interesting. Well, I want to do an A's and an Astros look in the mirror. Go ahead.
Well, so on a positive note, though, to the Yankees can't beat the Twins in the playoffs if they're horrendous. So there's the one positive note so far.
Neither of them will be in the playoffs.
Correct. The A's, so I haven't watched a ton of A's baseball outside of them destroying the Twins. They've won 10 in a row. Freaking insane after we completely wrote them off. I do want to stand up for myself, though. I did text Jesse at one point while they were terrible and said they're a 500 team at least, and they look like they're probably better than that. But
10 in a row.
Go ahead.
And the Astros, who I was like, oh, geez, here we go, have now lost 9 of 10, including getting swept by the atrocious Colorado Rockies. So that's very two teams just like went.
Correct. And if that doesn't bring joy to your heart, I truly don't know what does. And if you like the Astros, just turn this off and don't ever listen to us again.
Get a trash can and bang on it for a while and do that instead of listening to the podcast.
But a couple other stats that really jumped out at me looking at team stats. The Mets have hit 9 home runs all year. They're hitting 244. I mean, if you wonder why they're Lindor has not been great. If you're a Cubs fan, which probably a lot of you that listen to this are, you're hitting 201 as a team right now. So if you wonder why you're not winning games, holy smokes. I mean, truly, what happened to Javi Baez? He's hit for power this year.
He did a grand slam last night.
But still, he's still hitting like 200. I don't understand where that went. So.
All right. Well, to piggyback on your team stuff, the NL East is anybody's guess. They have the best player in baseball besides Mike Trout in there, Ronald Acuna, but he should be back tomorrow, it looks like. But Braves don't have enough pitching. The Mets don't have enough hitting. The Nationals are terrible. The Marlins are bad. And the Phillies, Bryce Harper has looked awesome the last week or so. I should say that. I like him.
And Acuna is still hitting .419.
Yeah, he leads the NL in average runs, home runs, hits. He's third in RBI. He leads in OPS and slugging. I don't know what to tell you. It's like almost like you could have come
well,
in
even
and listened to
not
me
even
pick him for MVP and buy his rookie cards, and you would be rich and rich. Go ahead.
But not even the NL. He leads the entire major leagues in average. He leads the entire major leagues in home runs. He leads the entire major leagues in hits. Truly insane.
He's awesome.
I saw a quote the other day. One of his teammates said, "When's he getting called up to the next league?" And it honestly feels like watching him, he needs to be.
Yeah, he is incredible. All right. The other thing I said is that there's really only one really good team, and then I wrote it in all caps, and they are really good. The Dodgers are way better than everyone else. Now, does that mean they'll win the World Series? Maybe not, because a lot of times there's a team that looks way better than everyone else, and they don't do anything in the playoffs because the playoffs are a crapshoot. But goodness gracious, that team had Betts back, the 4 starters that they have, plus Dustin May, plus David Price. It's insane. And then I wanted to highlight 2 National League pitchers. Corbin Burns, who just set a record for 36 strikeouts to start the season with no walks. His whip, for those of you who don't know, that's walks plus hits divided by innings pitched, is like 0.2 something. It's unbelievable. And so he's been great. And then Marcus Stroman, who was kind of my dark horse fantasy guy, who I drafted on both my fantasy teams, is 3rd in the National League in ERA, ahead of Jacob deGrom, who's also been awesome. And then my last point is that the National League has more interesting guys than the American League. I still feel that way, even though some of those guys aren't hitting. And Tatis, yikes. But anyhow, any other things you want to talk about with baseball before we move on to Crow Facts?
Yeah, I don't have really anything terribly profound other than that. I mean, we have, 6 guys that have ERAs under 1 still. So there's been some serious pitching. It's very much been nationally focused.
You would expect Danny Duffy.
No, I mean,
Glasnow. Who's the other?
Burns, Carlos Rodon, who had a 0 ERA until his last start. I mean, you've got Glasnow, who's been good, but not this good.
No.
Yeah, the leaderboard is weird. I mean, like Eduardo Escobar is tied for 2nd for home runs in the major leagues. I mean, Wilson Ramos is tied for 2nd. Brandon Nimmo is 2nd in the league in batting average.
Yeah, he actually has been decent a couple times, but yeah, Wilson Ramos got to hit home runs because it takes him that long to get around the bases when he's trying his hardest. So he is slow. All right. Well, we've bored people with major leagues a lot the last few weeks, and guess what? That's what you're going to get. But give us a Crow fact of the week.
So I'm actually veering here. I have a really good Crow fact that I'm going to save for next week, but it's a kind of a long story, and then I'm going to piggyback on that long story because there's a kind of a transition there, but I don't want to read it because I don't have it memorized yet. So I'm going to pivot to my second favorite animal, and if you want to call them an animal, but bees are super fascinating, and they're actually super intelligent as well. There was a study done, and I shockingly found this on Reddit. Bees can actually perceive time. There's a really cool thing they do with pollination and how they signal each other and everything, and we'll cover that at a later date, but they can actually perceive time just like a normal person would perceive time. And it's not so much even by daylight, it's literally just like their internal clock. So they did a study where every single day they set out sugar water at 4 p.m. So I think it was 4 straight days that they did this. And eventually the bees started leaving the hive at 4 p.m. and they would go to that exact spot every single day at 4 p.m. Even if there wasn't sugar water there, they'd still show up the next day. So they said, well, maybe they're just kind of judging it by the light. They're perceiving the sun. They decided to do this in a dark environment, and it wasn't a different time of day, but they basically just took the light away. I think they did it in like a cave or a tunnel or something along those lines. They still left at the exact same time, perceiving that this is when it is. So their thought was, well, maybe they're perceiving kind of the Earth's rotation or some random thing that they're actually understanding. So they moved them actually to a salt mine, and they still left the hive. They left the hive at 4 p.m. So they thought maybe this has something to do with location or whatever. So they actually did the exact same experiment. They did it in Paris, and then they moved them to New York. And the very next day, they left the hive, not at 4 p.m., at 10 a.m. because they were jet lagged, because they perceived time.
Wow. I don't think we need to finish the rest of the podcast.
Isn't that awesome?
Learn more about bees.
Oh, it's the coolest thing ever. So yeah, that was my mind blown.
You really outdone yourself this week. Very well done. All right. Well, some quick NBA talk. Maybe there'll be a commercial in there for our new sponsor, but probably not. Any thoughts on MVP as another week has gone by? Did you see that shot Embiid almost made last night from full
I
court?
did the full court, just the heave against the Suns.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Anyhow,
I still think it's Jokic. It's Jokic to lose. I mean, Embiid's missed 30 games so far this year.
No, but enough.
Enough, and Jokic hasn't missed a single second, it feels like, and they really haven't dropped off since they've lost Murray. I mean, if they take a nosedive in the last what are there 3 weeks left in the regular season, 2 or 3, sure, I think you could make a case, and you can obviously make the defensive case with Embiid over Jokic, but the minutes played and the offensive stats, I mean, Jokic is basically 50, 40, 90 with 10 assists or with 11 rebounds and 9 assists. He's literally, if you go back and look at Larry Bird's prime, he is putting up Larry Bird's numbers. It's insane. And he's orchestrating the offense. I have not seen a big man do this in a long time, and especially, so perfect example of this. And I want to transition to Curry a little bit as well. But I don't know if you watched the Sixers Warriors game the other night when Curry went off, had 49. The only reason he didn't have 50 is because he got poked in the eye right before a free throw at the end of the game. And there was no point where I was scared that Embiid was going to come back and take that game over. None at all. And I was terrified every single time Curry had the ball. I'm not a Warriors fan. I probably am a Curry apologist, but
as you should be.
Watching him was insane. Watching Embiid was impressive, especially on the defensive end. He's probably the best defensive player in the NBA. But it wasn't the same feeling that you get watching Jokic take over a game or watching Curry take over a game or watching LeBron take over a game, in my opinion, at least.
Well, there you go. And the odds back you up. I'm looking at them right now. Jokic is minus 380, Embiid plus 350, Curry plus 1,800. I don't think there's any way they're going to give it to a guy who's on a team that has a losing record right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he was bad last night after a couple of flamethrower games.
Oh, he went 2 for 14 from 3 last night.
Yeah. He's going to take that many threes no matter what. And he's been the most fun guy, I think, to watch. I think Embiid has probably been the most dominant player of the year. But Jokic is, health is a skill. And if you're going to play every game and put up the same numbers as somebody else, I don't know how they can win the MVP over you. So I agree. Okay, I'm going to read you some odds for the finals, for winning the finals. And you tell me if any jump out at you. Oh, sorry. Okay, there we go. You got Brooklyn is the favorite at plus 220, Lakers plus 350, Clippers plus 700, Jazz plus 700, Bucks plus 750, 76ers plus 1,200, Suns plus 2,400, Nuggets plus 3,000, Heat plus 3,600, and I think we're probably good. Mavericks 4,200, Celtics 6,000.
Yeah, Celtics, Trailblazers, Hawks, Knicks. Yeah. To me, it's the Sixers. I mean, again, I just crapped on Joel Embiid, but Simmons didn't play that game. Simmons is the game changer because he can actually match up and they can guard teams like the Nets. They can guard teams like the Lakers.
Yeah.
I don't know that they can score with him, but it's going to be fun to watch. I mean, they're they have the second best defense in the league this year. To me, that's your value play. And Phoenix is the only other one. I still think Phoenix is going to actually end up with the best record in the West. I don't trust the Jazz. They rely way too much on shooting. They don't have enough playmakers to win in the playoffs, and they're really not. They're a great defensive team, but only because of their center, who you can completely take out of a game if you can stretch the floor.
And he's the worst. Plus 2,400 for the Suns is really interesting because if they end up, the interesting thing is I think the Lakers really would love for the Jazz to stay the 1 seed and for them to play in the 4-5 so that they can avoid the second round matchup with the Clippers and let the Suns and the Clippers duke it out. So some of that matters as far as seeding. But also if you're the Suns, boy, you don't want to see the Lakers and then the Clippers. That's tough.
No.
They almost don't want the 1 seed. But the problem is then it's going to be the other way around. I don't know how they avoid it. But and then, the two teams that are the favorites have two of their best guys that haven't played in weeks, basically.
And Harden had another setback.
Yep, it's a weird year. Durant got the thigh contusion. He's been on the court basically not at all. So it could be another one of those weird years where you have a team like the Heat last year that just kind of snuck in. I don't think it's the Heat this year, but could it be the Celtics? Could it be I don't know. I guess the Suns.
Could it still be the Nuggets?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, to me though, it's up to Porter. Porter has been a revelation this year, and a lot of that is due to Jokic, but yeah, I mean, they still probably don't have the guard play. You're going to rely really, really heavily on Will Barton and
I just don't know what you do when you run into, like, you think Porter's going to take it to Kawhi and Paul George? No. Is he going to take it to LeBron? No. I don't know that there's any way that they can do that. All right. Any other thoughts you want to make on NBA before we move on, besides that it's a blast to watch Curry play, which we're going to get to in a segment in a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it looks like I'm still making money on the Hawks, so sorry, Dustin.
Yeah, you're good on the Hawks and probably on the Warriors maybe too. Do you want to talk about NBA Rookie of the Year at all, which is it's a terrible year for this?
To me, it's still LaMelo.
He's the favorite right now at minus 330. That's a disaster.
Well, he's going to play before. He's probably going to play before the year ends. I mean, he's been hands down the better rookie. But it's been a really boring class. I mean, it's not been a bad draft class. It's been fairly deep when they didn't think it was going to be deep. But there's been, and I'm not even into Ant-Man.
The best player is actually Halliburton, but he doesn't have the flash of LaMelo or the amount of minutes to make up for. But I think he's really good. And Anthony Edwards, I've seen a lot of players like Anthony Edwards, and none of them end up being winning basketball players. So we'll see with him. All right, things we hate. Are you ready? I'm going to make most of our listeners mad with mine because I know our demographics. So go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have a ton here. I decided to go with socks, and if those of you that listen to the Dan Le Batard show, this might sound a little bit like a Greg Cody back in my day, but I hate socks. I hate wearing them. I don't understand why they're necessary. I don't understand the stigma against people just going barefoot. Sullivan in the background doesn't like socks either. I lose them. My dryer eats them.
Always.
I spend 80% of my laundry trying to match them up. Amanda takes them, just steals them, so I don't even have half my socks. And then when I do wear socks, no matter what, the most important place that I'm at, where I've got to like kind of look a little bit classy, like a semblance of it, I got holes in my socks. It's the worst. Just truly the worst. Get rid of the socks. And also, it's 2021. Why the heck are shoes not breathable enough that I can wear no socks?
Feet still stink. That's the problem.
It's just the worst. But if you give me some breathable shoes, maybe I just need to go to Crocs. Just permanently Crocs everywhere.
Self-respect, at least. Jeez, to go to Crocs.
Yep.
Well, listen, you remind me of that commercial where the dad and his son are making like plaster socks because they're tired of losing their socks. Sick of it. That's it. All right. Thing I hate this week. Get ready. About 80% of the people that listen to this podcast are going to disagree. I hate country music. It's just terrible. It's like, all right, you take rock music and then it will just make it worse. And then that'll be country music, and we'll sing about less important stuff, and we'll just whine about all kinds of things. And, I can't with country music. I'm not even going to get into any other side of it besides the music itself. It is a no for me, dog, quoting the immortal Randy Jackson. It's like, if you're not good enough to sing a different genre, you put a little twang in your voice and then you sing country music. And again, my dearest of friends that listen to this podcast, most of them love country music. So sorry, but I have forever cannot understand the allure of country music. So that's it.
All right. So I got a quick rebuttal here, and I feel like you're listening to the wrong country music. And normally we would absolutely have agreed with this. There is country music that is listenable. So Dad's country music, and sorry, Dad.
Sorry, Dad.
You're our main listener here. Growing up, when Dad went through his country phase, and we had to listen to Carrie Underwood and the garbage that was all of Dad's country music. Wow. That is understandable that you dislike it. And the complaints and the slow country music, you got to find some upbeat, some rock country music. And I'm going to share you a playlist, and you're going to listen to it next week. And if you listen to it next week, I will watch whatever it is that I can't remember.
No. We're not bargaining about Ted Lasso because you want me to listen to country music. I've been asking to do that since the dawn of this podcast. That was my first recommendation 6 weeks ago. Get out of here. I'll listen to your playlist, but I got podcasts to listen to first. All right, fine. That's a thing I hate, and sorry to everyone who now thinks that I'm a jerk. But There we go. I have more stuff I hate later in this podcast, but actually it goes with this this next topic. So we took this from the Bill Simmons podcast, straight up stole it from this week.
I wondered if you picked up on that.
Yeah. Our favorite Major League and NBA players since we were kids. Kyle was born in 90. I was born in 86. So since we've been conscious and following along, we're a sports family, always have been. If we did this podcast about literally anything else, it would not, you would be like, those guys don't know what they're talking about. I mean, you may still feel that way. This is about what we know. I could talk about children's ministry for a while, but I don't think anyone's listening to that podcast. So Kyle can talk to you about recruiting people to Goshen Health System, but I don't think anyone's listening to that podcast either. So Kyle, do you want to start with the major leagues of the NBA?
Let's go MLB.
Okay. Give me your top 5 in no order, if you have something like that.
So I don't know how you attacked this. So to me, it
just
was
made a random list. That's how
it wasn't. I didn't so much do my favorite players, although there are definitely some Twins on here that no one else would care to watch. But more like random guys that actually made me tune into Major League Baseball games that I did not give a crap about. And to me, that's the testament of this year leading forward, because it's pretty clear the Twins suck and they're not going to make playoffs. And this is basically MLB's test on me, the demographic of the people that are the actual baseball fans that are also frustrated that games are 3 hours long. What am I going to tune into? So as far as pitchers go, I've got a list of about 4 or 5, and then I'll do 4 or 5 hitters. How's that?
Okay. Do your pitchers first. I have a few.
Okay. So pitchers. To me, I like the unicorns. So Randy Johnson is the very top of my list.
Only one person disagree with you on that.
That was what I was just going to say. At least he didn't hit a crow. To me, the pitcher of my generation, that is, because Randy Johnson was a little bit early for me. I mean, obviously I still watched him, but Kershaw was must-see TV growing up. Johan Santana is going to be my biased pick. I mean, if you've never watched a guy throw a circle change to perfection, you A, haven't watched my co-host here, and B, have not watched Johan Santana. Just filth. But then you've got guys like Maddox, Clemens, Pedro. Pedro is hard to leave off this list. Probably. I mean, I've got Scherzer on here and Sale. Had the pleasure of seeing Sale's debut out of the bullpen in Chicago. That was awesome. Saw that live. But Mariano Rivera is probably the top pitcher that people would kind of forget about. But watching someone throw nothing but fastballs and just destroy teams, it was truly must-see TV.
All right, so here's my pitcher list. Pedro is on the top. Late 90s Pedro. You would tune into those games, and as someone who was a pitcher and was okay at it, I don't know how you make the ball do the things he did. It's just unbelievable, and he's just a short little guy like me and you, shorter than us actually, and just throwing absolute heat with filthy stuff. So he's on the top. We went to Steven Strasburg's second big league start. This is before surgeries and stuff, and that's the most. I mean, they were selling in Progressive Field Strasburg jerseys. Like, it was that big a deal at the Indian Stadium, and it was electric. I mean, he just comes out throwing 100, and I know that's become kind of like normal now, but it wasn't.
That was not the norm then. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen live.
Yeah, it was an electric stadium. So he's on my list. He's not on my list anymore, but pre-surgery Strasburg. My guy right now is Shane Bieber. He's on my team, and he's a guy that they picked in the middle, like the 5th round. He was a guy in college who had great stuff, but he didn't throw that hard, and they basically taught him to throw harder. You can read into that however you want. And now he's probably the best pitcher in the American League still. I mean, still. He leads the American League in strikeouts by a significant margin right now, and his stuff is disgusting. So, and then we're going to go with some niche variety here. 1997 Jarrett Wright for the Cleveland Indians was awesome, and then it immediately wasn't. Kershaw, partly because of the kind of human he is, that he works with International Justice Mission in the offseason and then becomes the best pitcher in the major leagues. I actually share your affinity for Johan Santana, believe it or not. So, And then from a closer perspective, for me, it's actually Billy Wagner, another little guy that would just come in and be like, oh, here's 101 from the left side. Good luck, everyone. And last one, a guy that kind of fizzled in a hurry because he was throwing 104 mile per hour. Joel Zumaya for the Tigers.
Oh, yes.
Just come in. He didn't have anything but just freaking heat, and he brought it. So
and that was to round my pitcher list off. It was anyone that throws over 100 miles an hour with movement. I mean,
like half the people now.
But like everyone from the Rays last year, like Santiago, because whatever his name, I don't even know their names. They all threw
one
like
after another. Fairbanks,
and
Anderson.
It dropped off the ledge like it was a slider, but it was moving the wrong way. Just insane. And one guy I just thought of, Francisco Rodriguez.
Yeah,
when he was setting saves records. I mean, the sliders, and no wonder he didn't last all that long. I mean, just break your elbow off when you throw a slider. He was disgusting.
I mean, I remember that World Series he pitched in. He was pitching in the ALCS, and Sports Illustrated, when that was the thing, interviewed Jeff Kent, and they were like, how would you hit that? And he's like, oh, you can't. And then they ended up facing in the World Series, and Carrot struck him out a bunch of times. It's unbelievable because you can't. Once you've seen a slider that's really good, that's not even like, that's like on a different plane. That ball was like stopping and then breaking like 8 feet. This is outrageous. So
it's not even fair.
Good
and
pull.
Pre-murder, you get Urbina.
Touche. All right, let's do hitters. Give me like 3, and I'll give you 3, and then we'll compare lists or something.
Okay, so I've got 2 categories I want to hit here. One, our favorite player of all time, Alex Rodriguez, stands on his own.
The guy.
Met him at Notre Dame. Got a picture with him. It was the greatest day of my entire life.
He's nearly single, right, ladies?
Yeah. There you go. And yeah, hard to beat there. But then like the unicorns like Griffey and Frank Thomas and Miguel Cabrera. I mean, watching Miguel Cabrera come up, I mean, obviously you've got Trout and Betts and all of that, but watching Miguel Cabrera, that rookie year with the Marlins in the playoffs, and then what he evolved into, and still to be hitting at 38, just insane.
Yeah.
But then I
quite the video when he got pulled over when he was drunk too. So.
That as well. But then you've got like the eras of people. So you've got like the Jeter, Garcia Parra, and A-Rod era, where it was the era of the shortstop, and it was must-see TV no matter who they
Miguel
were.
Tejada even for a while.
Miguel Tejada for a while. David Eckstein, the unicorn that was David Eckstein.
It's a mini pony.
But then you had like the McGuire Sosa era.
Oh, I have roided Sammy Sosa on my list.
Yep. I mean, just guys that you wanted to watch, even if you didn't give a crap about their team. I mean, Ripken, Pujols was just like that, where you were tuning in for Pujols. There were years that you literally just tuned into SportsCenter to see what Pujols did. And then Ichiro, to me, is the biggest unicorn there. And then the last one that I pulled out just for your sake was Vizquel and Roberto Alomar. Strictly from the defensive side.
Those guys in the middle infield, oh my word, was unfair. All right, well, I mean, you hit a lot of mine. Griffey is on my list. It's just beautiful. The swing, the way he played center field, I don't know what more you can ask for. The fact that the Mariners had Griffey and A-Rod and Randy Johnson on the same team, plus Edgar Martinez and Jay Buhner, and they didn't win much of anything is absurd. All right.
And Joey Cora.
Very true. Norm Charlton. Anyhow, Paul Sorrento. My guy for today is Acuna. I've already waxed poetic about Acuna on this podcast, so I don't need to say any more about that. But he's the next guy. He's gonna, whenever Trout is not the best player in baseball, it's gonna be Acuna. And I've been yelling this as loud as I could for anyone to hear in my baseball card groups for a long time, and everybody decided that it had to be Juan Soto, and they're all wrong. So anyhow. How's that? Lindor is my guy because of the Indians. Actually, when he's right, Javier Baez is an absolute blast because he does it all. But he hasn't been right for a while. And then, all right, I think you're going to go into like lesser guys in a minute, aren't you? Yes, no?
Well, my list is somewhat exhausted, but I can stretch it out.
Well, I have a couple of random ones for you. Kenny Lofton. Again, I'm an Indians fan, but he's so fun.
Ooh. I've got a Kenny Lofton stat. One of only, go ahead.
No, go.
One of only, I think, 3 or 4 players to play in a World Series and in a Final Four.
Yeah, for the Arizona Wildcats. Your Arizona Wildcats.
Yep.
Shannon Stewart, I was a big fan of Shannon Stewart. And then Vernon Wells. Vernon Wells was my guy.
Yeah, he was always your guy.
He was always my guy, and then he sucked all of a sudden. So, and then my last one, and we're going to go back to a pitcher. Oh, I need to mention Michael Brantley, who is one of my absolute favorites. But Barry Zito is my other guy, who was great for a while. And then it was like, oh yeah, he only throws 83 now. He can't get anybody out. So anyhow, and the one other thing I wanted to mention is Pujols' home run off Brad Lidge in the NLCS. That's like an all-time YouTube clip. That ball went a million miles, and it was a humongous hit. And you should all go watch that. And then after that, watch the Barry Bonds home run against the Angels, where Tim Salmon in the dugout very clearly says in the World Series, "That's the farthest ball I've ever seen." So watch both of those, both playoff home runs that were just bombs. So anyhow, all right, you want to do NBA quickly?
Yeah. The one other thing is I can't believe that we mentioned Sosa and McGuire and we did not mention Bonds in the same sentence. So that's a failure of the podcast. Though.
It's hard.
Still, though, that was must see TV if baseball has ever had must see TV.
And we should also mention. I also want to mention Kerry Wood for like 18 months was you watched his starts. Anyhow, all right, NBA. I have a short list. I don't really care about the NBA as much as I do baseball. Okay. Sorry, everyone.
So my all-time top of my list is Curry. I mean, there is little in the NBA right now that I will tune in for just one player. And really the list is Curry, LeBron, and Zion of current players that I will watch all anytime if they're on TV. Mm-hmm. And strictly just the difficulty of the shots that Curry is hitting and the increase in volume to be more efficient than he was in his what should have been his prime this year is truly insane. I mean, he's not shooting a single shot that he's not contested, or that he has not broken someone's ankles, or that he's not double teamed and just somehow found his way out of that double team. I mean, it's truly insane. And we were joking about the roster that they're throwing out with Mark Mulder and the impact guys that are playing on this team. For them to even be sniffing 500 is insane. I mean, you saw what happened when he didn't play. They lost by 50.
Yeah.
I mean, it's horrendous. There is no supporting cast, and with no Wiseman, with Draymond Green essentially being a shell of a shell of a shell, there's nothing helping him, and they're still about to make the playoffs, at least playing games. So he's my number one by all time. Isaiah Thomas was another one that not the good Isaiah Thomas, but the very, very short Isaiah Thomas is one that I've always appreciated, and one that I always like to watch just because it was Muggsy Bogues 2.0.
Mm-hmm. But better.
And then guys like Nash and Jason Kidd and Grant Hill, Yao Ming.
Your guy, Grant Hill.
My dude, Grant Hill. But along those lines, the weird guys like Gilbert Arenas and Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady. Yeah, I like the unique. So like Gerald Wallace, when he was going on a run with the Bobcats, that would just dunk all over everyone. To me, those are my favorites.
If any of you are wondering, whose game in the NBA would Kyle's game look like in a pickup game? The answer is Tony Allen. Okay. Tough defender, hard-nosed, going to shoot some line drive jumpers, but he'll bang around with you. And at the end of the game, you really wish he was on your team if he's not, but not if he's shooting a lot of threes.
Yeah. If I'm shooting, you're losing.
But if he's playing defense on your team and rebounding, you're in good shape. All right. Well, my list is Curry and LeBron are 1A and 1B for me. LeBron is kind of our generation's Larry Bird, where you go, geez. I mean, he just makes everyone around him better. Mm-hmm. The passing, the rebounding. He's found a way to make himself a good enough three-point shooter to be a threat from everywhere, which we want everybody to do, but only the people who really work at it end up doing it. Ray Allen has been my favorite player forever and still is. I love Ray Allen. I am, if anything, a guy who likes to stand around the three-point line and shoot. So guys like Ray Allen and JJ Redick and Kyle Korver, those are kind of my spirit animals. None of which who are tremendously athletic, which I'm not really, especially on the defensive end. Well, Ray Allen had some years where he was cramming on people. Here's a one you're not going to see on a lot of people's lists. Tim Duncan. I don't think I think unless you really understand what's happening on a basketball court, people think like Kobe was way better than Tim Duncan. And it's like, well, then you don't understand. Maybe he was a little better. I don't think so. If you give me both of their careers and just start from scratch, I'll take Tim Duncan every time. Better teammate, better leader, better winner. He was the best player on all of their finals wins. Kobe was the best player on 2 of their finals wins, and Pau Gasol basically bailed his butt out for the second one he won because he was atrocious in Game 7. So give me Tim Duncan all day. Call him boring. I don't care.
So to piggyback on Tim Duncan, those Spurs teams just in general, with Tony Parker and Manu literally looking like slinkies out there, like they just slithered everywhere. They were so fast. Those teams, I did not appreciate those teams growing up like I should have, just because I very much am a contrarian, and you and Dad were always rooting for them, so I was always rooting against them.
What a shock!
But the demotivational speaker in me, but going back and watching highlights of those teams, those guys were incredible. And Parker would run 90,000 yards in one play and find someone on the perimeter or find a scoop layup underneath the basket with 3 defenders around him. Incredible to watch.
Yep. Yeah. Some interesting guys that weren't superstars. Sean Marion, really interesting to watch. Jason Richardson, when he was kind of in his heyday of dunking on people, was fun. Zach Randolph, just kind of a goofy low post game guy that would show up at a pickup game besides being humongous. But you go, well, that doesn't look like much. And then like, oh, okay, he actually just killed us. Guys like that are always interesting to me. So anyhow, and then of course, who can forget Austin Crozier? Just kidding. I don't care about Austin Crozier at all. Just on Pacers when I was growing up in Indiana. All right. That's probably enough of that.
Guys like Jason Williams, though, just talk about the complete unicorns, where he wasn't actually very good. I mean, he was a mediocre shooter, tons of turnovers, but the passes that he would pull out would be very Jason Kidd-esque. The difference is that Jason Kidd actually made people better, and I'm not 100% sure that White Chocolate did. But
yes.
KG is another guy that probably deserves to be mentioned. I don't know that we've said anything about Dirk either, but people that were unicorns before we see a lot of the unicorns that we're currently seeing. Kind of laid the groundwork for those tall, lanky guys. And
yeah. Speaking of unicorns, my lovely wife just walked out of the kitchen here, rolled her eyes at me. That's about how it goes around here. All right, let's move on. I was going to mention some of my least favorite players, which Barry Bonds was on my list, and Kobe, and some other people like that. But we'll leave that alone. All right, you have any thoughts on the NFL draft that you don't care about nor have thought about at all?
Intelligent thoughts, or
no? But so since we tried for that podcast,
there are things that I can talk intelligently about without doing any research, such as video games and niche indie rock music and recruiting and maybe the Minnesota Twins. And the NFL draft is not one of those things. So if you want actual knowledge, I literally have none. So I'm going to defer to you on this one.
You're on the clock at pick 2. Who's your pick? We all know Trevor Lawrence is the first pick.
Well, with who's picking, I've probably taken a quarterback, and
Kyle has no idea. All right, here's my only thought before we actually do like some bets and stuff next week. We're not going to have any bets on this podcast. We don't have anything ready. I will go to my grave believing Justin Fields is the second best quarterback in the draft. I know there are a bunch of people who would say otherwise. I just feel like I know what I have with him, and I think he's durable and big and strong-armed and tough, and I'll take it. And maybe Zach Wilson will fling it all over the yard, and maybe the kid Trey Lance that's played like 10 college football games will be the guy, or maybe, I don't know, who's the guy I'm missing? Oh, Mac Jones. No. Get out of here. If Mac Jones goes before Justin Fields, I don't know what to tell you. That's all I have. That's my thoughts. All right. I know you have a story about Sully for the family fiasco, so go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to try to keep this brief, but this is probably my favorite Sullivan story of all time. Okay. So we moved within the last 8 months or so, but in the past we lived in we had a fenced-in backyard, and we had the big shed in the back with all the storage and everything. We would always have animals kind of huddling under there, and and he would always be sniffing around it. And we'd let him, I mean, it was fenced, so we just let him out there for a long time. He would literally just sprint by himself for hours and hours and hours. I am on my way home from a job fair. I think I was at Indiana Wesleyan, and I'm on the phone with Amanda, and I'm probably 45 minutes or so out. It's middle of winter. There's probably a foot of snow outside. And all of a sudden I just hear screeches. And I'm like, oh no, what is going on? We've seen a possum out there a couple times, and I've had to like keep Sully away from him, get him inside real quick. And Sullivan will listen to me for the most part if I yell at him to come inside. Does not give a crap about what Amanda says because she gives him people food and has no authority. So I just hear, there's the possum. He won't come inside. And I'm 40 minutes from home, and I think I made it home in like 20 minutes. I mean, I was going like 80, 85. And the entire time, all I'm hearing is just Amanda out of breath, screaming Sullivan. Never got him inside. I get home, she's just like literally lying in a heap, exhausted from chasing the dog around this yard the entire time. And Sullivan's just sitting in the corner. All you can see is eyes. It's the middle of the night. I mean, it's like 11 o'clock when I'm getting home. And then I walk over there, and there's just this possum just like curled up, just playing dead. And I thought it was dead, so I thought Sully had killed it, and I couldn't catch him. So as soon as I got close, he would wait until I'm like arm's length, dead sprint away. So I'm sprinting around the yard in full dress clothes, trying to catch this stupid dog. Finally catch him, get him inside, and the possum's gone. So I've got to get rid of this possum. I assume he's back underneath the shed, and he gets out. There was a little crack in behind the shed. So I took some rat poison, put it in the back, made a little wall out of cinder blocks, so this possum is stuck back there, I assumed. Go back out there in another hour. So it's now midnight. It's a weeknight. I'm ticked off. I want to go to sleep. Sullivan's all wound up. Amanda's near heart attack. Go back outside. The rat poison's gone, but the possum is also gone. So I've got to find this possum because I can't let Sully out in the morning, or else he's going to eat this poisoned dead possum somewhere rotting in the yard. So I end up finding the possum, and it's, again, curled up into this ball. You can tell it's about to throw its entire guts up. It's poisoned. It's miserable. I feel terrible for this little thing. So I go out, have to get a shovel. I look like I'm burying someone in my backyard at midnight in the middle of winter, and I have to smack this stupid possum to kill it. And I hit it the first time, and I missed its head, and I hit it right in the back. So now I have a possum having a seizure in my backyard, and I'm covered in possum blood. And I ended up having to hit this thing like 8 times. I feel horrendous. And then I have to just shovel the pieces of possum brain and possum back to the front of the yard. And what the heck do you do with this shattered poor little creature? So I just left him in the road. He was in the road for a week until the trash came, hucked him in the trash, and that was the possum story.
Jeez. Wow. That is, I don't know how I top that story. I don't really know how to even, it's pretty good. Pretty good. Sullivan, really, I think you could make a TV show about all of Sullivan's exploits, especially when you make up stories like the Uber one. You just shoehorn them all in.
In fairness, he would do that if he was presented the opportunity.
For sure. All right, well, I'm trying to think. We haven't told the story of how you kept getting hit in the mouth and losing teeth. Oof. But we'll do a full family fiasco here. Here's one. Kyle got into stuff as a kid, right? And so one time he got cinnamon all over his body and had to go to the hospital because he was burned. He got up in the cabinets. One time he climbed on the fridge and did a whole thing, but I won't embarrass him with that story. But I will tell you that one time we're going to involve Dad in the family fiasco today. We are out playing a family soccer game at Thanksgiving, right? It's a whole extended family. And Kyle, probably 4 years old, decides Kyle's a bad history with teeth, a bad history with his teeth, that it would be a decent idea to sit down on a soccer field while the game is happening.
I was playing goalie.
You were not. You're in the middle of the field. I watched this happen.
So it's an extended goalie. Sometimes you
have to understand our family, the men in our family are very competitive people. And we get that from our dad. And it is a trait that has served us mostly well. So he's going pretty hard, and him and his brother have a good rivalry. A little different than anything we ever had, I would say. And so he's playing hard, and he, in any good soccer player, he's got the back tap, right, where he kicks it back with the back of his foot. Well, on this unfortunate instance, he goes to kick it back with his foot, but there's a little kid sitting on the ground right where he's trying to do it, and he managed to kick in Kyle's front teeth while playing soccer. And needless to say, all of you parents, that's not a good situation. But so Kyle got an emergency trip to the dentist at some point there over the holidays, and would not be the last time Kyle lost teeth playing sports or had them hanging by a thread. You can tell that story one other time. So that's the failing fiasco for the week. I haven't had any of my kids poop in their pants on the porch or go out completely naked. So that's good.
That's a win.
But today I was outside with the kids, and they have chalk, right? They don't actually draw pictures with the chalk, because who would do what the chalk was made for? They make pixie dust. So what that consists of is taking a piece of chalk and grinding it into a pulp on our pavement and then scooping it up and putting it in a little bottle. So Kate likes to do this now more than anything. And I looked up at her today. I had all three kids outside by myself while Emily was getting lunch. And she literally looks like a red Oompa Loompa. She is just caked with chalk all over her face. This is out of control. That kid, if anybody knows of a good boarding school, let me know. All right, got anything to recommend this week? I have one thing, just one.
All right, so we're gonna mix it up a little bit. We're gonna do one music recommendation and one TV show recommendation, and I'm gonna make the TV show up on the fly.
Music, though, right? One that actually exists.
It does exist.
Oh, okay.
So I ragged on Dad's music a little bit earlier. Our father had a huge influence on my music listening, with classic rock and whatnot. So if you like classic music a little bit and kind of like more chill rock, give Simon and Garfunkel a listen. And Dad, you should appreciate that. Fantastic. If you like bands like the Beatles and whatnot, Zeppelin, give them a little try.
Garfunkel's good. Got to be in the right mood, though.
Yep. TV show wise, we're going to stick with the theme of, like, I've done a lot of true crime and whatnot, but this is an actual true thing that happened. So if you've ever heard, obviously you've heard, probably if you have not lived in Iraq, of the Chernobyl meltdown. HBO did a series that is not 100%. It's not 100% accurate, and it is a tough watch, but it is fantastic. Kind of a reenactment of what happened, what led to the meltdown, the corruption that kind of caused all of that. It's really, really, really good, and you need to be in a good mood to watch it, because if you're in a bad mood, you're going to be in a really, really bad mood once you're done with it. But yeah, it's like an 8-part series. They're all like 1-hour episodes. Really, really good if you like history and if you like things that are a little depressing.
I mean, look, it is tough. It's a tough one. Like the people standing up on the bridge at the beginning with the fallout coming down like snow. It's tough, but it's incredibly well done and well acted. So, yeah.
And really, really interesting if you like science and
really
want to learn a little bit about how nuclear reactors actually work and what really led to the issues within the Russian system. And
and for our more wholesome viewers, it unlike most HBO shows, is pretty, besides language, there's not really much that is any kind of objectionable in it. And so
it can be hard to watch at times with the hospital scenes, but unlike most of the things that I've recommended so far, it is actually somewhat wholesome.
Yeah. So, all right. Mine is a show I'm also watching on HBO right now. It's actually, I'm not often someone that can do subtitles very well, because I like to be doing other things while I watch TV. But there's a show called Beartown, which is a show that is set in, like, I don't know that they even really say, but I think it's like Sweden. It's about this hockey. It's centered around a hockey team, but the story is really centered around something else that I won't give away. But it's really interesting, and the hockey is fun, and it's a good look at kind of like what life is like somewhere that's very different from our culture. So it's short. It's 6 episodes. We're watching the last one tonight as soon as I'm done with this podcast, actually. And yeah, I think a lot of people on here that watch this would like it. If you don't have HBO Max, find one of your friends that does. I'm signed in under someone named Nicole on my that I got from Kyle. So I actually thought about making an account on there that says not Nicole. What can you do?
Thank the in-laws.
Yeah, thank the in-laws. They are not even my in-laws. This is an in-law once removed type situation. All right, we made it. I only talked negatively about a dead NBA superstar twice on this podcast. So sorry, Kobe. All right, till next time. NFL draft next week. Get ready.
I will have some opinions, and they will not be correct, but
all right,
at least act like we know what we're talking about.
All right, bye everyone.